Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax. Today, we're talking about seeking feedback or just looking for feedback or why feedback is super important. Obviously, you can tell I don't know what to title this yet. Maybe just seeking feedback. So, feedback is so underrated. The idea of doing something and then asking for someone's opinion on how you did or things you could improve on, super underrated. You know, we don't talk about it enough. That's one of the reasons why teachers are really good, specifically English teachers. You know, you write an essay on, The Great Gatsby or something, and your teacher reads it and goes, okay, I can see some of the interesting ideas you're trying to talk about here, but like, why'd you do it this way? Or why didn't you use this example? Man, was that ever helpful? I was not a very good English student. I really struggled through high school, especially. University, I definitely got better, and I had a hard time with feedback. I, did not have great experiences with my English teachers, and I was always feeling so critical or feeling so self-critical about like, man, they're just gonna rip my essay apart. And fair enough, I didn't write good essays, especially that one on The Great Gatsby. I can remember that distinctly. Anyway, I think being able to, sorry, Lily hairs, she's everywhere. Being able to receive feedback is so healthy. You need to first be able to accept it. I think a lot of us with inferiority complexes or, feeling like we're not good enough, feeling like someone's going to rip whatever we've done apart and get really critical of us, I think that is a real problem. And being able to get over that and just accept, they're going to have an opinion about what you've done, and hopefully they're complimentary, but feedback is feedback. And no matter what, it gives you an insight into something. You might get feedback from an ex or something who broke up with you and they were like, oh my gosh, you're just the most awful, blah, 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 blah. It might not be super relevant feedback for you to learn from, but it teaches you a lot about that person and how they interpreted your relationship and how they sort of felt about it in the moment and how they feel about it afterwards. And that can be really valuable. I don't want to understate how valuable those kinds of things can be. And I'm always sort of the first person to say, okay, like give me some feedback. Like, how did I do? When I'm baking a cake or something for my family, I'm always so curious of like what they thought. Is it too sweet? Is it not sweet enough? Can you taste the fruit? Can you, there are a million little things that I'm trying to critique and perfect, because every single iteration of something you do can always be improved. It can always be better. Even masterpieces like The Great Gatsby or, amazing chefs and things are always seeking feedback and critiquing, and they're always fine tuning their, the thing they do. People fine tune how they play piano, and they're master pianists who are able to play the most beautiful concerto you've ever heard. And they're always looking for ways to improve. They're always practicing, fine tuning. And feedback is one of those ways that you can get a huge amount of information from people about something you do and improve it. That's one of the reasons why I love listening to the comments and reading to the comments of the videos that I put out, because you guys point out things that I'd never thought of. You guys suggest topics for videos that are just perfect. They're really good concepts and I really enjoy them. And so I'm constantly in this fine-tuning mode, when I go to the gym, I'm seeking feedback from other people I see at the gym. If I'm hanging out with some friends there, they give me advice and information, and I'm always looking for that kind of help with my technique or my form. And so seeking that feedback is really important. And I think it's something that we don't necessarily do a lot in our lives because we don't necessarily ask for it. We're not out there seeking feedback from people because we're just kind of like, I don't know, I'm shy. I don't necessarily want to hear feedback from people about what I'm doing. I don't want to be, put on the spot or made to feel like I'm critical or I'm not doing everything properly. And you need to sort of step out of your comfort zone a little bit and ask for feedback. What did I do good? What is something that you enjoyed? And this is something that you can use in dating, you can use in fitness, you can use in cooking or any kind of skill. Um, you can just ask for feedback from people you trust, or, people whose opinions might be interesting to hear from, and come to a new realization. You might find two things. It is incredible how many times I will be doing something and a friend or a family member or just somebody will say, "Oh, have you thought about doing this?" It's like, "Oh, wow. No, I didn't. Oh my gosh." Driving a friend across a city that I've known this city my whole life. I know it like the back of my hand. And they're like, "Why didn't you take this way?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'd never even thought of going that way." And it's something like, "Oh, I know this place like the back of my hand," and yet a little bit of feedback, a little bit of like, "Have you considered this?" A second opinion is always important, and it's a saying for a reason. So definitely use that. I've found it recently, like getting a new vehicle. Second opinion, pretty good idea to hear from a mechanic or somebody who understands what they're doing, because they can help you avoid absolute disaster, which not fun. And I'm glad I avoided it because of that second opinion. Uh, but I think the biggest part of it is you just need to have the courage to get that feedback and get that second opinion, which again, it's difficult, especially if you're an introvert. I get it. I totally understand that, opening yourself up, it's this vulnerability, which we've talked about before, but that vulnerability to say, "Hey, I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm doing. What could I have done better? What should I do in the future?" We learn from our past mistakes, but sometimes you don't really need to. You can just get feedback and improve as you go in the moment. And that's underrated. So I don't know. I think that's really all I wanted to say about feedback, seeking it. I think it's really important to do. Um, yeah, I feel pretty strongly about this one. I think it's really important, and you need to do it from people you trust. You will get feedback from people who just ignore their opinions. Um, there are occasional comments or concerns of people that I listen to, and sometimes you just have to shake your head and say, "No, that's not constructive. That's coming from a place of anger or dislike or whatever you want to call it." And knowing when to accept feedback is also an important aspect, because as a people pleaser, it is easy to fall into the well or the hole of accepting bad feedback from people and just following it because you don't want to offend them. There is nothing wrong with baking a cake and tasting it and feeling like it's great, and then somebody says, "Oh, you need a bit less salt." If you like it that way and you think it is really great, there is nothing wrong with continuing to bake that way. So let him cook. Don't feel like you have to change, but you should be willing to, understand where they're coming from, understand if there's some relevance, understand if there's something to learn from. It doesn't mean you have to change or you have to accept the feedback, but at least hearing them out, that's important. I think a lot of teenagers fall into that trap when it comes to their parents. Um, Thankfully, my parents were pretty, I guess I was very independent, and I was kind of committed to doing my own thing. And so they never felt like they needed to give me any feedback or constructive criticism. But with my brother, that's a different story. I think there was a lot more feedback, and whether you want to incorporate the feedback into your life is up to you. Love you, bro. But we all fall into interesting things in life, and being willing to take that feedback and be humble with it can be pretty good. So that's the thought of the day. I hope you're having an amazing day. I hope the sun is shining and you can live in the moment and enjoy whatever you're doing. Let me know what you think about feedback. Have you ever received some bad feedback, like some really awkward feedback or some very questionable feedback? I certainly have, and I'm really glad I didn't listen to it, because boy, oh boy, would that not have turned out well for me. Anyway, let me know what you think. And as always, guys, I will talk to you tomorrow.